All right. We are now officially live. This is tons of people already logging on. You can see all the attendees. I say this every time. It's my favorite part because you just see the number rolling over. You see all of the names that you haven't seen in the last 5 months. All people that generally by this time we would have seen at a trade show, we would have seen at a meeting or a sales mission. So I'm getting by seeing all the names coming up. And Bobby Sweet, I haven't seen him in forever. We worked together indirectly at SeaWorld back in the day. So I love it when I see names that bring up all kinds of stuff. Brian Wright, good to see you coming on. As always, as we're gonna, as ever, give some people time to get logged on and situated. Sarah, good to see you. As always, as you're logging in, let us know where you're logging in from. Tell us hi in the chat. Christina and Samantha and Michael want to know where you're calling in from. So be sure to let us know that. And in addition, when you have questions, make sure that you put them in the Q&A box. I'll see them in chat. It's just easier to get them all in one place in Q&A. So we can get them asked to our panelists and make sure you get all of your questions answered. Hey, Jim, good to see you again. He's coming in strong.
Come from all over.
I'm literally across the bridge from me in St. Pete, and I never get to see her in person. It's hard to keep up with everybody logging in, right?
It's crazy.
Oh, that's fantastic. All across the country.
No pressure at all. They all just want to hear your knowledge and what you have to say.
I see some familiar faces. I see nice. So
as always, those of you that have been with us before, thank you for coming back to the webinar series. Any new names that are coming in, we've been doing these since the 3rd week of March, really just trying to keep everyone connected. Stay engaged in the industry, make sure that we're talking with operators from different markets, whether they be domestic or international or receptive, airline developers, just really trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the industry right now. So all of us can take this knowledge and create a plan that works the best for us. And everybody has been the kings and queens of pivoting right now. If you normally did international, you're putting your toe in domestic and trying to learn what that is. Trying to do new and unique things. We have receptive operators that are working with local communities rather than international travelers that aren't coming over right now. So we thought that today would be a great day to talk with some of our friends from AAA. And we'll probably do this a couple of times, over a few more webinars. But everything we've heard over and over again has been, it's going to be domestic for the rest of this year, and it's going to be domestic for the first part of next year. So the conversation has been about the Great American Road Trip and bringing that back and what are people doing. So who better to talk with than our friends at AAA? So we're really excited that Michael from AAA Northeast has decided to join us today, and Samantha and Christina from AAA New York. So rather than me introduce them, I'm going to let them talk about their clubs and what they focus on, and then we'll get into questions like we normally do. So Michael, let's start with you.
great. I appreciate you guys having us here and inviting us. I see some familiar faces, or some familiar names. So some of you might know who I am, some of you may not. But I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at AAA Northeast. We cover in the Northeast, we cover all of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Long Island, and New York City, and some of upstate New York. We have about 6.2 million members that we cover here in the Northeast. And my role here at AAA on the Northeast side is to work very closely with many of you on the domestic partnership side and the international DMO side, in terms of helping with cooperative marketing, getting your message out to our members, out to our agents, training our agents. I work very closely with Brooke Vergona. I think she's on this webinar as well. So her and I work very closely with a lot of the domestic partnerships that we have with DMO organizations, helping them with their messaging. We have roundtable discussions with some of our leadership for some of our DMO partners to talk about ways that in this post-COVID lockdown world, how can we reach our travel agents and how can we reach our members in a more effective way to ensure that our messaging is is trusted, is poignant, and it's also something that, you know, the message gets through. You know, right now we're talking domestic traveling, but also inspiration, you know. So we work very closely with a lot of our DMO partners on helping them to better attract the Northeast market, Northeast travelers. So that's
awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for being here. And Samantha and Christina, before I let you go and talk about yourself, Betsy just sent me a text and said you said AAA New York instead of AAA Ohio. So I apologize for that. So please, ladies, introduce yourself.
Yeah, that is A-okay. But yeah, we're from AAA Ohio. I'm Christina. I'm a sales manager at a local store in Medina. And Samantha here is a travel agent. And yeah, so we work in the stores. So we are directly consumer facing. So we are, you know, we're hearing what our clients are saying. We're hearing their fears and things that they're concerned about. And we're also right on the front line working with our vendors, trying to get our clients rebooked and refunded. And it's been a roller coaster of a year, but we're still trucking through. But yeah, we appreciate being on the call today.
Oh, we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much. I already know that this group is going to have so many questions for you. You know, they want to know how to get involved. They want to know what your clients are saying. So I think, you know, the first question I always start with is give us an idea of how you're doing. So I'm going to start with Samantha and Christina. You know, how are things going in club right now?
So like Christina said, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. We'll have our days where people are chomping at the bit to plan vacations, and they're interested in finding out more about continental U.S. travel, just because of COVID and not being able to go very many other places overseas. And then other days it's very quiet. So it's kind of a roller coaster, and we're just kind of feeling it out and seeing what we can do.
Right. Yeah. And luckily at AAA, we have various business lines. So yes, we're taking a hard hit with travel, but we do have, you know, membership discounts and rewards. So we're definitely seeing a spike in membership as people are taking more road trips and domestic travel. So there's a lot of different, you know, membership promos out there. We've gained quite a few other partners, like corporate partners, that we can provide membership discounts to. But that way our members can get, you know, the maps and tour books to help them along their way with their road trips, and the famous triptych we still do. Yep. So yeah, it's definitely been a lot of road travel, but we see a lot of our repeat travelers are anxious to get out and travel again. But first time, say like cruisers or like international travelers, they're definitely looking to stay a little closer to home, and not ready to get their toes wet yet. But yeah,
it's good to hear that people are exploring ideas though. And I'm going to come back to you on cruise. So I'm going to have questions for you about that. Michael, so how is the Northeast doing?
We're doing fairly well. The good thing for AAA is especially, I think we've been able to deal, especially here in the Northeast, with all of this COVID lockdown and this, you know, drop in travel very well. We haven't, here in the Northeast, haven't had a chance or haven't needed to lay off or furlough any of our agents. And that's a lot to do with the fact that AAA is a very diversified organization, right? Where unfortunately, a lot of these travel companies, STA most recently, unfortunately, had to close their doors. But where a lot of these travel organizations are shuttering in the storm and needing to shut their doors and lay off people, because AAA is so diverse, our ability to, you know, lean on some of our other business lines, whether it's roadside or financial services or banking, it allows us to kind of weather the storm a little bit better. So that way, when the bookings start to come back, and we're already seeing it happen, when the bookings start to come back, we really have a chance to take advantage, along with some of our partners, both on the vendor side as well as on the destination side. We can start to market to our agents or train our agents during this downtime, because they're all still fully employed. They're all still looking for ways to learn and stay engaged with our partners. But as things start to come back, we're in a better position to start to reach out to our membership and really get the word out. So in terms of where we currently stand, our bookings are increasing week over week. So we are seeing travelers start booking now, especially more domestically. I don't know if AAA Ohio is seeing the same thing, but we're also seeing that domestic travel is coming back a lot faster, which we anticipate. You know, the guided travel, that type of travel isn't coming back as quickly. more so, I mean, we're seeing the bookings, but those bookings are more so for late 2021. The bookings that are happening with shorter booking windows are the ones that are more domestic. You know, we're seeing the Floridas and the Californias and the Vegases of the world starting to come back with shorter booking windows. You know, when people decide they want to travel, they're not looking to travel in 3 months, they're looking to travel in 6 weeks, right? So when they finally make that decision, we're seeing that the booking windows are shorter. And then last, we're probably right about, 50% as to where we would have been at this point last year. So the bookings are coming back. We're seeing the growth week over week. As a matter of fact, we had our biggest week last week since March. So we're starting to see the bookings come back, which is really exciting.
Really good to hear.
We're really excited about it. Yeah. So, a little ray of sunshine, we're seeing the travel come back. So we're excited about what that means for us as well for our vendor partners and our destination partners too.
So you mentioned bookings are coming back, and you said 6 weeks out. So I'm assuming 6 weeks out is what they're looking for domestically. And then my next question, just logically being from the Northeast, what are your clients saying about quarantining? Quarantining when they come back into the Northeast for 2 weeks after they go somewhere. Are you hearing any kind of feedback from that? What are you hearing from them?
So in terms of the clients themselves, a lot of what I do here as the Director of Strategic Partnerships is I look a lot at the data. So I look at a lot of going on in terms of the numbers and the bookings coming back, both for our vendors and for our vendors, as well as our domestic partnerships and international partners. So I don't really necessarily get the sentiment in terms of the front line from what the traveler is doing when they travel and they come back. I would assume that a lot of them are still working from home, so the idea of quarantining isn't necessarily the biggest hurdle for them to jump as of right now. But in terms of the numbers are coming back, which is very, very encouraging for us. And the research that we're doing and our sentiment that we're getting back from our consumers, our members, which is really important with AAA. One of the biggest differences that we have when our travelers is, they're members of ours more often than not. They're not just travelers, they're not just customers. So that member relationship is really important to us. And we value that, and we take advantage of the feedback that they give us and the way that they kind of provide us with information as well here in the Northeast. So although I'd love to know, Samantha and Christina might be able to give us a little bit more insight. I know that the bookings are coming back. I don't know how they're dealing with the post-travel quarantining, unfortunately.
No worries. Samantha, Christina, what are you hearing from people in club? What's their biggest concern about coming in when they're talking to you about travel?
Yeah, so that's definitely a big question, just because there's a lot of confusion since the quarantine mandates vary state to state. So it's a lot of, well, I'm just passing through this state, is that okay? So there's a lot of confusion. So we always advise, contacting the local health departments from each state just to be certain, hey, I'm from Ohio, I'm traveling through here, and my final destination is here, just to kind of figure out exactly what needs to be done. I know a lot of people are kind of disappointed to hear that, they're required to quarantine, and it's kind of limiting their travel because they're like, well, how am I supposed to stay there for a week? So that's kind of like, well, maybe just stay put and then come back, I guess. But it's hard to say because everyone has to do what's best for them, but we also have to follow the state to state guidelines. So we just recommend contacting the health department. That way you have the most accurate and updated information. But yeah, there's a lot of concern with that. And especially we've noticed too with road trips that a lot of different fast food places that you would typically stop, maybe grab a bite to eat, use the restroom, are closed for walk-ins. So, you can't get that bathroom break if you're at a McDonald's. So it's always just stopping at the local rest stops that are actually open and serving customers. So just kind of have to shift gears a little bit and kind of put the mandates and restrictions in the forefront, even though they might not want to, but that way everyone can be happy and they can get to where they're going the best way.
Absolutely. I think it's all about communication right now. You'll find several DMOs that are on this call that have been collecting due diligence and collecting all of the information they can about their area, what's open, what's not open, and love to share that information. So I am sure that they will be reaching out to you after this call to see if they can share that information with you. So you have as much information as your hand.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I mean, we rely so much on that communication.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd love to hear from them as well. Absolutely.
You just made a whole lot of people happy.
All right.
Be ready. They're going to make sure you have that
That's what
information
you wish
in hand. So you mentioned consumer sentiment, Michael. What's the data that stands out in your consumer sentiment surveys?
That's a great question. So in terms of a lot of what we're looking at, you know, we started all of this process in terms of the post-COVID recovery, thinking that what are our travelers looking to do? We assumed that most travelers would be wanting to go on that road trip or go camping in their backyard, so to speak, you know, the campgrounds that are near them and staying local. And as we started to do some of our consumer sentiment testing and looking a little bit about what our travelers are looking to do, we found that what happens within each individual person is different, right? You can't make assumptions and get messaging out there saying that everybody's going to be going to their own backyard. So let's just focus here in the Northeast on, you know, getting our travelers to Maine or to New Hampshire or, you know, some of those campgrounds. We quickly found that what they were going to do next varied from person to person. Some people, their first trip, the second the borders open, is they're going to Europe and they're going to, you know, they're going to go to Ireland or they're going to go to England. Some people said, you know, the second I get a chance, I'm going down to Florida. I'm going to spend some time on Miami Beach, right? So we started to come up with this consumer sentiment of, you know, what's next is different for everybody. And so the messaging that we've kind of used here in the Northeast is what's next, right? You know, the next streaming that I'm going to do is sitting by the river, you know, hanging out by my campground. Or the next thing I'm going to be doing is, you know, going to Las Vegas and winning it big at a slot machine, right? Or I'm going to Miami and I'm spending time on the beach. So a lot of the consumer sentiment that we found is we can't necessarily paint everybody into a corner to say everybody's going to be traveling this way. And so we're just going to focus on this market. We're only going to focus on the Northeast traveler traveling in the Northeast. And that's what we tell a lot of our DMO partners is, you know, we know that you're focusing on the direct drive market. Yes, that market's going to come back probably the fastest, but you have a lot of travelers around the country that need to be inspired by your destination again. With the drop in travel and the drop in overall sales, you know, one good thing about that is those destinations that might have fallen by the wayside and were never seen as a destination to go to now have a chance to grab that market share that a lot of these big city destinations, like, I apologize if they're on the phone right now, but the Los Angeleses, you know, the big metropolitan Bostons of the world, you know, those cities are going to have a harder time getting that message out there of social distancing, getting out into the great unknown. So those cities that might have fallen by the wayside now is the opportunity for them to reach out all over the country to say, yes, we provide social distancing. You know, I think of the Big Sky, Montana. I think they have Oregon. They have huge opportunities here to kind of say to our travelers here in the Northeast, we can provide social distancing. Or the Grand Canyon, and showing a picture. We had this great idea, showing a great picture of the Grand Canyon saying, is this socially distanced enough for you? You know, and kind of getting that sentiment out there. So we have a lot of cool things that are going on, but what we're really seeing is what's next is different for everybody. So the DMOs that are out there trying to say, we're going to focus on this type of traveler, you know, we encourage you to kind of focus on your market, but encourage you also to focus on inspiration of those across the country that might not have thought about your destination before, where your destination might be top of mind now. So
I love that. And yesterday we always do a prep call, you know, before we have the actual webinar. So yesterday when we were talking, Samantha, you mentioned that you were seeing a lot of more bookings west,
Yes.
to Yellowstone, to the Grand Canyon. So it brings up a question, and this is one that we get into a lot, is when people are researching, are you seeing that they're looking more towards the gateway and beyond, more towards a rural destination or an open destination where maybe they weren't before? Do you see a change in that right now?
I would say, yeah. Prior to COVID-19, I was seeing a lot more European destinations, the Bostons, the Los Angeles, Atlanta, Disney World, Disneyland. Whereas now I'm seeing they want to go to the great wide beyond and see the national parks. They want to go to Yellowstone, Yosemite, like places like that. They want to go to Grand Canyon and do the railway. they're looking for wide open spaces where there's not a lot of people instead of going to the hustle and the bustle of the city that I was used to seeing.
We've heard that a lot, so I just wanted to see if that was a trend you were seeing as well. And on that same note, are people, do you see a change in requests for accommodations? Are they looking for a traditional hotel? Do you see a rise in self-catering units or villas or RVs? We talked about RVs yesterday, you know, so I mean, do you see a difference in the way people are traveling and the way that they're booking their stays?
Oh, most definitely. We've seen a rise in RVs and even in Airbnbs, VRBO. We've seen a drastic change in people not really wanting to stay in a hotel just because of the uncertainty of they're unsure of what the cleaning procedures are and does it differ from hotel to hotel or branch to branch. And they are looking to take their families, whether it's grandma, grandpa, nieces, nephews, cousins, small children, they want to take everybody with them. And once you get to the hotel, everybody's kind of split up and you don't know where everybody is at the same time. Whereas when they get the RV or the Airbnbs, they're all together and they're all bonding together and they're eating dinners together instead of, oh, somebody's down in the lobby and somebody's up in the room.
And it's like their quarantine cohort group, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. My nephew is going to college today. He's checking into his dorm and they've been assigned a cohort group that they can hang out with for the first semester.
Wow.
Which totally different than when any of us went to school. It brings up, you know, same kind of question about looking for open spaces and the DMOs collecting information. There's a lot of hotels on this call that they've all worked hard with corporate policies on safe and clean policies. Is that something you'd also like to receive that you can have in front of you to show customers when they come in asking about particular hotels and what their plans are?
Most definitely. Yeah. I think the more that I can give to my clients when they're asking, oh, well, what's this particular hotel's cleaning procedure? What is their COVID policy? Do I have to wear a mask? Do I not have to wear a mask? The more information that I can give to them, the more apt they are to be like, yep, I want to book it right here, right now.
That's great.
It definitely builds their confidence too when we're able to have this right in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are what the hotel brands are doing and how they're putting the consumer first. So it just reiterates that confidence in them and the confidence to travel.
Absolutely. And Eva from the Palm Beaches has a question. I know our minds were saying the same thing when I was asking that question because her question popped up. And she's curious as to if the clients are leaning more towards those destinations that have a certification program and provide that information. Is there a way to send AAA the procedures to share with the travel agents? And yes, Eva, we just answered that. So you got it. Send it directly to Samantha and Christina and to Michael, and they will get it out for you. But we have seen a lot, and Palm Beach is one of them, Nashville is one of them. A lot of destinations are doing great things on creating certification programs that are clean and safe, and everyone's providing, going by these certain guidelines. And do you think that would change a customer's mind if one destination had a certification and one didn't?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, it just builds that trust. And having this talk to gives us a more personal connection. Whereas before it's like, oh, well, we'll Google it and let you know.
Right.
So being able to be connected with, all the different locations and people on this call is perfect. And we'd be like, listen, this is coming right from them. So they trust us, we trust them. And so it just that trust strong.
Love that. What about for the Northeast, Michael? Do you think it's about the same thing? I know you're not direct in branch, but through those sentiment surveys you've been doing, is that what they're looking for?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think the idea of getting information out, especially in this post-COVID or lockdown world where COVID is still, on top of everybody's mind, the idea of getting information out there through trusted sources is very important. Our travelers, AAA is being seen as, one of those trusted sources. We're the fourth most trusted brand in the United States. So we're very keen on the fact of getting information out there. I mean, there's so much information out there nowadays. It's tough to tell what you can trust and what you can't trust. And so when we start as AAA to get the message out there, one of the things that we're doing, we were talking about it just before the call, is the Smart Depart series of webinars that we're doing through the Northeast, where we're highlighting some of our partners, both vendor and destination. And it's got nothing to do with go on this cruise ship at this great price or this great deal, or go to this destination because this hotel deal is amazing. It has everything to do with what are you doing to keep your travelers safe? How can we keep our travelers safe? And it's member facing. So it goes out to our members across the country. There are certain clubs that are partnering with us from the Northeast to kind of get this Smart Depart message out there. And we're also doing some certification for our agents as well for Smart Depart, where they're going through videos and webinars and trainings to understand, okay, what are hotels doing? What are cruise ships doing? What are airlines doing? How can we become the source of information for our travelers? Because the more that information gets out there, the more trusted sources become important. And AAA being one of the most trusted brands in the country, we look at that as a very important role. So, one of the things that we do with a lot of our DMO partners here in the Northeast is, how can we get your messaging out there to our agents? Because our agents are the ones that become the voice for AAA. So how do we get our agents qualified and trained on what your destination is doing? So that way our members can start to feel more comfortable traveling again, because it's going to start with comfort, which comes from trusted information, which is where we hope to be at the forefront of that with Smart Depart certification. We have a AAA travel center here now in the Northeast that we're putting a lot of these webinars recorded, a lot of this information that we're finding, CDC information, to really become that source of trusted information. So I think more so than ever in the travel world, trusted information is the most important thing to get people interested in your destination again.
Totally agree with that. So you said a lot of things in there that I want to unpack real quick. And one of them was right off the bat, everyone in this call sat up and took notice when you said you have a space where you're putting videos for training. And there are so many videos and training out there that they're going to want to get in front of your agents. Is there a place that they should be sending it? Is it an email that's separate from yours that you can share with me that I can share with them? That's going to be really important to everyone on this call, so that training can get out there.
Yeah, in terms of here in the Northeast, a lot of what we do, Brooke or I are the people to kind of go through and work with. Brooke, work with a lot of our destination partners. I see Joe's on the call from Miami. She works very closely with Joe, as well as some of the other people there in Florida. But a lot of what we do when we get the information out, we want to make sure that our agents aren't bombarded with information. If we sent out all the information that we received, our agents would quickly become very,
overwhelmed.
Yeah, they'll be, just more another email from Mike and Brooke. We're just going to delete this one. So we're very selective. So we really make sure that we partner with whomever we decide to send the information out with. So, for instance, we have a great partnership with Visit Florida coming up, but also with some of the cities here in Florida as well, that we're calling the Sessions of Sunshine, which is going to be really cool, where they're going to be able to get on our agents' Facebook page, engage with our agents through Facebook, really start to make that relationship there with our travel agents, because that's going to be much more impactful than us just sending them a PDF flyer from a destination. So we're more than happy to look over all the information, whatever we feel as though are those destinations that our travelers are really going to, and our agents, if there's always value in that. But if we do that too much without some kind of impactful messaging behind it for that particular destination, it's kind of just noise, and then it falls on deaf ears. So we try to make sure that any messaging we get out there has a multifaceted partnership layered mentality. So that way the messaging sticks, and that messaging can then get out to the consumer where it's a more impactful and meaningful, and we have a better chance of getting them to that particular destination.
I love that. Well, they want to send you videos, but they want them to be viewed. So they know now that they need to contact you and figure out how they make that work. Samantha and Christina, how do you handle training? Is there time for your branch or your club to have those types of training videos available?
Yeah, so we're lucky enough that we did partner with AAA Northeast, that we're able to get the additional trainings that they had put together. And then our travel department is always releasing, different notices, and they're conducting webinars, and we're working with different points of contact from all sorts of different vendors that we're able to log in and participate with. Many of these webinars are now being recorded, so even if we're able to miss it, we're able to hop right back on and see it.
Like this one today.
Yes, yes, just like
Yes.
this one. But yeah, so it's almost, I would say every day there's always 2 or 3 that, you know, we can hop on. And it's kind of shifted to whereas when you work with a AAA travel agent, you of course, pretty much the world is your oyster. You can book anything, we can do anything. But now we're starting to kind of have our agents have different focuses and areas of expertise. That way, when a client wants to do the Grand Canyon, they're going to talk to the Grand Canyon expert, just again to help rebuild that trust. So that's kind of some extra things that I've seen shifted in AAA, just to kind of continue to diversify our agents, but then have niche areas of expertise. But yeah, I mean, there's always trainings available, and that Smart Depart series is fantastic. I know they have some YouTube videos out there that are public facing, and it's a fantastic resource to check out.
I love that. I also, it's almost like I planned it to have both of you on together and you partnered, and I had no idea. So this really worked out well.
Yeah, it did.
So let's talk, we talked briefly about bookings, but let's talk about bookings just for a little bit. How are 2020 bookings? And you know, I know, Michael, you said you saw an increase. You had your best week last week. How is it at AAA Ohio? Are you seeing 2020 bookings for the rest of the year? Have they increased? And if so, kind of where are those top destinations? We talked about, you know, the how Yosemite and the Grand Canyon, or is anything else popping up?
So it's definitely a very slow and steady rise in the travel.
At least there's a steady in there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but it is steady. And then it kind of seems we'll work on one trip, and then right after that we get a very similar trip. So we're kind of wondering, like, you know, it's just
Outer Banks has been
yeah,
pretty influxed as of late.
yeah, especially for the high rental homes.
Mhm.
And AAA is working on a partnership with VRBO, so we can have just a better relationship with VRBO for those private rentals. But yeah, in our area in Ohio, I mean, we're within an 8 to 12-hour drive of a lot of locations on the East Coast with rental homes. So that's definitely been a big uptick. But
Yes.
yeah, it's slow and steady. And like Michael had said, they come in and they want to go somewhere in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, they're
4 to
like
6 months.
right. Like now we would kind of see people planning for spring break next year, but they're like, no, I'm ready to get out now.
Yeah.
So it's been.
I think everyone's been inside long enough that they just want to go somewhere. They
Yes.
Right.
help me find some place that I can go. So Suya down in Fort Myers has a great question. Are you getting any queries for the holidays or like any festive times? Or is it just, you know, that 4 to 6 weeks? Are people looking past that towards Thanksgiving, towards the holidays? Are they booking anything special for that?
I was gonna say,
I
really
personally
seen
haven't
that.
seen anybody ask about any kind of Christmas or Thanksgiving plans. Right now, it's all, I've got cabin fever now, get me out of here now.
Yeah.
I personally, I haven't seen anything go past probably
Yeah.
October. Other than I've had a couple that have booked 2021. But most of it, it's the kids are just about to go back to school. We want to go do something fun now. What can we do?
Yeah, and we've also seen where I don't want to say more experienced travelers, but those who travel more, they book the Christmas season much earlier.
Mhm.
So a lot of those bookings are still holding out hope that they're still going to go. But as far as, and then it's usually like before COVID, we would see a few in the fall, like, oh, I kind of want to see what we can do over the holidays. But then there's always like the sticker shock of how much it is. But now we're not seeing too much of that because I think everyone's focusing on other things right now. So trying to plan a big vacation isn't really on their radar. But yeah, so really not much for the Christmas season, unfortunately.
Well, I hope those that are booked will go. Well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for your clients.
Fingers crossed.
So what about, you mentioned 2021. Let's talk about 2021 for a minute. We know we're getting some short 4 to 6 weeks. Are people more comfortable booking 2021? And I'm going to come back to that cruise idea because, you know, we've seen a lot. We talked to some destinations that work just primarily with cruise and pre and post cruise, and they've seen bookings for cruise in 2021. Are you seeing your clients hold off from that, or are they shifting maybe more towards river cruises?
I'm not seeing very many new cruise bookings. If they're a first time cruiser, we're not really seeing them come in, and they're very hesitant to book a cruise. Whereas our cruisers that are doing 4 to 6 cruises a year, they're definitely ready. They're beyond.
You're a cruiser, you're always a cruiser, right?
Yes. Yeah. But it's just that new market of the new cruiser that maybe hasn't been on a cruise or hasn't been on a cruise in years, that we're still trying to tap into and make them feel comfortable enough to want to book in 2021.
Got it. What about in the Northeast, Michael? Do you have any data on cruising?
Yeah, so we're seeing, you know, a lot of our travelers have full travel credits on cruise ships and things. So we're seeing a lot of them eager to use their travel credits. You know, if you went by sales volume, like bookings, you know, Royal Caribbean is our #1 partner as of right now in terms of the bookings that we see coming back. But if you're looking at overall sales volume, just based on the dollar amount it costs per booking, you know, Viking is definitely at the top of that list there. And I think Viking, I mean, has a great opportunity here with their new ships coming down, you know, the Mississippi.
Yeah.
Is it the Mississippi? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's the Mississippi, right?
Yeah.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is down the
good.
Mississippi into New Orleans. But no, those cruise ships, I mean, there's huge opportunities and some of the things. Oh, thank you, Casey. I see that you put, yes, it's Mississippi. But some of the partners that we're working with are actually looking, whether it's New Orleans or Louisiana or Nashville, you know, we're looking at that time frame of 2021. Again, when we speak to inspiration, although now is not the time that people want to be traveling maybe long distances or traveling on river cruise ships, they still want to do that at the end of 21 and into 2022. Now is the time for our travelers to be inspired by what Viking has to offer on their amazing ships coming down the Mississippi in the next couple of years. And now is the time for those destinations, those hoteliers that are within that booking frame to start saying, listen, think about New Orleans, think about Nashville, think about these cities, even in the upper Mississippi. I mean, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for those cities that are further up, not necessarily the music cities, but you know, that's the time to now be speaking, maybe not investing as much money or as much effort into the 2021, 2022 that you're putting into the drive market today. But, you know, ignoring that, I feel in the long term is going to be, you know, a mistake that you don't necessarily want to make, because that's, as the momentum starts to build, I don't know if, I mean, Samantha had mentioned it, you know, people have cabin fever. As the momentum starts to build and the fear starts to dissipate, it's just going to grow faster and faster and faster. And either you're ahead of that wave or you're behind it. And, you know, those that are ahead of it and making right partnerships. I mean, we're working with, like I said, 4 cities. I think Rosemarie's on here as well. We're working with 4 cities down in Florida that have partnered together for this great week with AAA Northeast. The more that you can pool your resources, the more that you can kind of get ahead of that wave and find ways to combine funding with partners like AAA or like our agents and get the messaging out through our agents, the better position you're going to put yourself in as this growth continues and as it starts to head in the right direction, knock on wood, you're going to put yourself in a better position. It's those that find that funding from other sources that are going to increase and speed up their recovery.
Love that. So we have some great questions that have come in. And you know, one of them, and I really, Lori, I think this is a great question. She's asking if any of the clients are looking for destinations that are family friendly, you know, they can take their children to, but also do virtual learning at the same time. We're in a new age of school, you know, and generally there's those school breaks, but now there's virtual learning that people are thinking about. Have you tackled any of that with clients coming in and asking questions? And I'll start with Samantha and Christina.
I just encountered this recently where they were looking to go somewhere but continue their schooling while school was in session. So it's just kind of like, is there Wi-Fi or how would that work? Or I've even heard, oh, we're gonna like leave the kids at grandma's for their school week, but then mom and dad are gonna go on a vacation. So I don't know, it's been kind of cool. There's kind of a new trend going on. But that kind of just recently started, and I think that's it's finally up and it's starting to come across people's minds as well. If we are remote, you know, we don't have to be here. You can be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So it's a
Right.
new thing that we're seeing with schools being opened. But I've only come across like one or two so far. I don't know if Sam's come across any, but
It
I
brings-
haven't,
It brings up a question on, you know, we always talk about what, you know, incentives are there at a hotel. Generally, Wi-Fi is one of them, but, you know, is that becoming more important? I would think with these types of requests to know, is Wi-Fi, is it free Wi-Fi? Is it included? How do you go about doing that? That clients might be asking for, might be an important thing for anyone on this call to make sure that that's beefed up when you get those types of inquiries.
yeah, and that's really important. And it's also, guests are looking for like no contact options.
Mhm.
So I know the cruise lines are definitely working on that, where they, someone can be sitting on a pool, you know, in their pool chair, and they can order a lunch or something or a drink, and it can be delivered right to them on the ship.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And a lot of, you know, different hotel brands are really improving their app functionality, so they can do that contactless check-in and get everything. So I think that's really important to consumers too,
Mhm.
that are already on their phones and their mobile devices, that connection is strong. And then I see Ryan also posted in the chat, are you seeing travelers more interested in group travel or more family and friends type travel, like motor coach versus sprinter? I'm not seeing much group travel at all. It's really like just like immediate
Family and
families.
friends.
Yeah.
People that they've been quarantining with, or their close family that maybe they're quarantining in one area and they're quarantining in one area, and then they come together and know that they're both good, they're both healthy, but I'm not seeing very much, if any, group travel. I know one of our
Yeah.
other agents, she's had a couple bookings for cruises, but that's, I want to say 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
That's not anytime soon.
And I think, Michael, you mentioned right at the beginning, we talked a little bit about AAA Escapes and some of maybe the group tours that are being offered there. Not really a big increase in those right now. We do have another question about motor coach tours and group tours, and where you guys are with that.
Yeah, so as luck would have it, I was actually director of business development here at AAA Northeast, and I did all group travel for AAA Northeast before I became the director of partnerships. So strategic partnerships. So yeah, so on the group side, I mean, we work with a lot of group leaders here in the Northeast. I mean, some of our guided tour operators, Member Choice Vacations is still operating domestic tours here in the country. So they're still operating the tours. I think I'm friends with some of the tour guides, and I see them taking pictures of domestic destinations. I think I have a tour guide friend who's actually in South Dakota right now. So shout out to anybody from South Dakota. But Bad Hills, Black Hills in the Badlands. So yeah, so they're doing domestic tours. That's a fly motor coach tour. I think they had 34, 35 people on it. So they're still happening. They're still operating. I'm not going to say it's the majority of the business that's happening. But what I am seeing from my group leaders that, you know, we work with, I'm always in touch with our groups team. The group leaders are eager and anxious to get back out there. We have a group leader who almost filled a motor coach. She unfortunately, as you can imagine, canceled most of her tours for the remainder of the year, but she really wanted to get something on the books. So she put together a Nashville, Memphis, like holiday experience. And she said she got like 40 people within
Oh, wow.
2 weeks.
Wow.
So the desire is there.
Lisa from Memphis is on this call. You just made her.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so there's eagerness and there's a desire to be traveling amongst that group. It's just a matter of finding the right group leaders, the right groups. You know, a lot of the groups we work with, when it comes to group travel, it's the mentality of the group leader. If the group leader is afraid and fearful of COVID and everything that permeates throughout the entire group. If the group leader has confidence and doesn't have that fear, then you have the opportunity to have a strong, successful group continuing on. But again, it's not going to be the majority of the bookings. You're going to really have to find those group leaders. And we have quite a few here in the Northeast that we're trying to get back out there on the road and get them traveling again. And they're eager to. So knock on wood, things keep going the way they're going. So
Fingers crossed. It can only get better. That's what
Yeah.
I've decided. It can only get better. So let's let's talk about after the recession, after 9/11, after hurricanes, and I hate saying that, I shouldn't have said that when there's a hurricane that just hit Louisiana right now, I apologize. But generally to get travel back, there has been a push for incentives, some type of enticement that people look for to get them traveling again. Is that something that you're looking to do to get stimulation for 2020? And if so, what types of those incentives have worked the best with AAA members?
Yeah, that's a good one. A good question. I haven't seen much, I guess, for 2020 for the rest of the year, but just hearing from consumers when they come in the door, it's like, well, it's always been, what's the best deal? But now it's even, oh, what's the best deal now? What's the vendor going to do for me? How are they going to get, how are they going to get my attention to be there? So I think definitely different promotions and sales are very important to the member. We were actually just on a webinar with Princess and Holland Cruises in Alaska, and they were saying that they haven't needed to run promotions because their inventory is almost full for next year based on the rebookings, those that had already booked. So when we see new travelers that come in like, oh, I want to go to Alaska, they kind of have to restructure how they're thinking, but they're always looking for sales. So anything that incentivizes them, and kind of what are you offering based on your competitor, is super important. But yeah, so we haven't been seeing too much of that for 2021. I feel like a lot of vendors are kind of waiting to see how they're going to capture the market's attention. Because I mean, we know that they're changing day to day.
Mhm.
So
Every hour it feels like, right? Yeah. And what about in the Northeast, Michael? Have you guys been planning or thinking about any type of incentive type offer with certain brands?
Yeah. I mean, we are seeing that, it's that tipping point where the offer is finally starting to overcome the fear, right? If the offer is good enough, the fear is no longer important. It's always important, but they're starting to.
Kind of true. Yeah. That's why we asked the question. Yeah.
So if the offer is strong enough, and that's kind of what we work with on the vendor side more so than the destination side. The destination side is more about awareness. It's more about top of mind, getting the messaging out there. But a lot of times what we'll do is we'll partner a vendor with a destination. So for instance, one of our vendors is Pleasant Holidays, and one of our partners that we're starting or trying to start working is Hawaii. So we'll partner Pleasant Holidays with Hawaii to find ways to engage our agents and train our agents, talk to our members about the great deals that Hawaii offers. So that way it's almost a perfect storm of people walking into the branches or calling our branches while our agents have just gotten or received training. And so we do that with destinations all over the country. We try all over the world really, but we try to kind of match them up with vendors that, like Vegas, for instance, is another great partner of ours, or somebody we're trying to work with as well. And there's someone who, we work very closely with TI, and TI does a lot of bookings. Travel Impressions does a lot of bookings to that destination. So we try and work together in conjunction with our vendors to help make that best offer. So that way that fear is no longer important, but it's a little less important than the offer, saving money, because as the fear starts to go down, some people will always have that fear, but as the fear starts to go down, the offers start to become more and more attractive. So we try to make them as attractive as possible, and then gear or train and get our agents ready to make those bookings and close those opportunities when the opportunities arise.
I love that. And that kind of brings us right into marketing. And both of you have mentioned it a couple of times, what we might be offering at this time or pushing at this time. What are, or maybe it's how can the individuals on the call really talk to you about getting involved in partnership marketing or pushing information out? What's the type of marketing that they can do and what works best in your areas? I'm going to start with you, Michael.
So I'm sorry, you broke up for a quick second.
Marketing, what works best for them, how they get involved. What are you doing?
Yeah, so I mean, our marketing plan our marketing strategy is multi-tiered, right? We have multiple ways that we can kind of get our agents engaged as well as our members, as well as our whole entire team, right? So our whole entire team gets together once a year. at what we like to call threads. It's a big sales meeting that we have. All the travel team gets together. We're all threads of a bigger fabric, so we call it threads. But it's a really cool way for all of our agents. So sometimes destination partners will, support and promote that and sponsor that. But through agent engagement, we have our Facebook page. So our campaigns really focus on a two lever, really three lever approach, which is which vendors can we involve to make this training or this messaging much more much different. How can we get them, I'm thinking of a word but I can't think of it right now, robust, much more robust. And then also we have the agent engagement. So how can we engage our agents through Facebook, through email, through digital marketing, through agent webinar trainings. We're starting this new thing here in the AAA Northeast. I'm terming it our AAA, our innovation lab. So we're trying out new ideas and new things. We have this social media content where our marketing team puts together all this social media content or all these articles and landing pages, and our members or our vendor partners and our destination partners can sponsor that content. And then our agents and everybody here at AAA Northeast can share that on their own private social media pages. So they get a wide reach there through social media, that idea of influencer, micro influencers. Mm-hmm. I mean, on the agent side, there's a lot more. We're doing Sip at 7, so we're starting to do like social nights for our agents. You don't have to come, but if you want to come, grab a glass of wine, learn a little bit more about, some of our great destination partners, which is really cool and starting to grow legs. And then last but not least is for the members through social media, digital media, all of that stuff. There are multiple ways that we can kind of build a campaign that's multifaceted and engages our members, our agents, and our vendors in very unique and different ways.
Love that.
If they're interested in working with us, I mean, if it's something that, we can have conversations with, we're open to having any conversation, as we start to grow our strategic partnerships, we're always open to new conversations and ways that we can work with destinations all over the country and all over the world. So.
I love that. Expect calls. That's all I'm saying. And Samantha and Christina, what's happening, in AAA Ohio with some of the marketing and engagement with your members? Mostly, digital media, social media.
Yeah, I think now social media more than ever is so important. That is where we're reaching generations that we might not have reached before. So I know a lot of our marketing is very well received from, say, like generations who are retired. So now it's just a fact, it's trying to reach as much people as we can. And I think keeping it just really simple, not having basically if you're like scrolling through Facebook, you have like 2 seconds to get someone's attention. So it has to be quick and simple. And as far as like partners go, we're always interested in new partners. Our like discounts and rewards partners, our department has significantly decreased with COVID, unfortunately. So here in stores, we have a lot more to do with getting that partnership ready. And it's just a matter of going through the proper channels. But I think being consistent amongst a brand is also very important so that we can trust them and the members can trust them. But yeah, I mean, social media that's where it's at. I mean, I think that's like the future right now. Everyone's on their phones anyways, they're quarantined and they're bored. So they're scrolling. And I mean, you gotta get it right away.
It's all there. You're connected to it.
Yes, we're so connected. Yeah, and just a way that stands apart. Like you have to be able to stand apart from other vendors. I mean, that's always been a trend, but something that catches their attention is, I think, the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. So I told you guys that this would go fast, and we're down to our last 5 minutes, if you can believe it. It went by so quickly, but we do have a couple more questions that I want to get to. And it's from Petra, and she's asking specifically about AAA consumer shows. And I know all of the clubs kind of do used to do their own big shows. Do you have any insight on if those shows are happening, if they're happening virtually? Have you heard anything about that? Petra's from the West, so she's specifically asking maybe some that might be happening in Denver or more on the West Coast, but anything that you might know going on in your own club.
Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up. Every year, AAA Ohio does a giant travel expo in Columbus. We get all sorts of vendors, and it's a huge show. I'm sure many of the vendors that are here today have also participated in that. And we do have ours scheduled for January 2021. So it'll just be interesting to see how things go and how we're able to do that. We haven't heard much on the store end on what's going on, but I mean, I know these conversations are being had in our corporate office and different departments. So it's kind of a wait and see, but I'm hopeful. I really hope it happens, because that's always a fun event for the consumer and for the other vendors just to get out there. So we'll see.
Everybody to get out and see each other in person. I think we're all dying.
Right. That's the biggest.
What about in the Northeast, Michael?
Yeah, I wish I had good news in terms of an in-person event, but our marketplace, which happens every year in March at Gillette Stadium, is going to be virtual this upcoming year. I know that the question asked about Denver, I can kind of we can reach out to the club in the Mountain West region and maybe get an answer for her.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, but I know that here in the Northeast, we've kind of taken our plans for our marketplace, which is typically in person. Our marketplace actually this past year was the weekend before, actually happened the weekend before everything shut down. And so it wasn't very well attended. So we're starting to figure out, it seems that always on that weekend, it's the first weekend in March, there's a blizzard. One time we had what they call a bomb cyclone. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, that's like our travel. There's always something.
So we're trying to figure out ways to be more adaptive and bring it virtual. So be on the lookout. We always have destination partners there supporting and promoting to our consumers. It's a huge consumer facing show. It used to or does add another month basically to our calendar in terms of sales and everything. So it's a big show for us. So although it's virtual, we're looking at ways to be, it's right now in our innovation lab as we try and figure out how we're going to make it work for 2021. But unfortunately,
I love that, and I'll make sure on our follow-up email that I get all of that information for both of the events, and I'll work with you, Michael, to get out to Mountain West to get information on Denver as well that we can put in. And Leslie sent this question early, and I waited until now to talk about it. But she mentioned that last year we were in Louisville. So Connect Travel generally does a domestic show called Connect Tour, and we did it for the first year in Louisville last year, and it was right now this week a year ago. So we're kind of sad that we're not having it in August like we normally do, but we are going to produce an in-person event in Orlando, November 8th through the 10th. So thank you for bringing that up, Leslie. And if anybody is interested in doing a domestic leisure in-person event or hearing more about it, you can just contact me directly, but it will be November 8th through the 10th at the Lowe's Royal Pacific in Orlando. And Kevin, you're getting a question in here right under the wire. With theme parks restricting capacity in Orlando, for example, has that negatively impacted bookings for theme parks or attractions in any way? So limiting capacity, Disney's doing timed entrances. Has that been a challenge for you, or has it affected any inspirational questions about that travel in the future? I'm Samantha and Christina, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, that's been really challenging, because I think the biggest question that it comes down to is, well, what if we can't get in if they limit capacity? So it's been really challenging. Fortunately, but I guess unfortunately, we haven't had that problem yet where they were at capacity, at least that we've heard. But it's just an added step for them to, make that park reservation and do that extra step. So that's kind of reassuring too, that there is that extra step to ensure that they are guaranteed entry. But I think that's the biggest concern, is just the what ifs. They're not super concerned with what's actually going on. They're like, okay, we'll be there, but what if this happens? Yeah. So it's that, crystal ball scenario that's hard to navigate, but we're all working through it. And yeah, they feel a lot more assured that they have these reservations in place.
That's good. That's good to know. All right, so it's 2:00, so I'm going to ask one last question, and it's words of advice. Michael, do you have any words of wisdom for everyone on the call here about moving forward with AAA Northeast?
Yeah, I mean, the two biggest things I would say is, stay optimistic, stay positive, and persevere, right? That's what I kind of tell my team all the time, positivity and perseverance. But I think the other big thing is, don't forget about inspiration. I think inspiration at this point, a lot of destinations, I think I've mentioned it multiple times on this call, but I think a lot of what we're trying to do now is to inspire our travelers to start thinking about traveling again. Those that are ready to travel have already made up their plans, but the first step in any travel decision is inspiration. And if your destination can be there in the time of inspiration, that's where you want to be. So yeah, so I would say never give up on inspiration. Now's the time to get that messaging out there, and we're happy to help if you feel that the Northeast is a market that you want to work with, for sure.
Love that. Thank you. And Samantha and Christina, any words of wisdom on how people can interact with AAA Ohio?
Yeah, definitely. You know, don't hesitate to reach out. I think that's the biggest thing, is just reach out. And one of our directors always says that optimism is not naive, it's leadership. So, you know, we just have to we have to set that example and set that tone for the, you know, safety protocols and everything that's in place. And we have to be excited too. And then it's going to trickle down, and it's going to reach our members and the travelers as well.
I love that. Thank you guys so much for being here. Spending an hour with us, an hour and 1 minute, because I kept you over now. But thank you. It means so much to the panelists. It's such great information. It gives them another avenue that they can work with and keep in mind when they're planning their budgets for next year. So I really appreciate you taking your time, because time is valuable and you spend it with us. So we appreciate it. For everyone on the call, continue to tune in. We'll be back next week with domestic tour operators. Thank you to Betsy Cooper. I forgot to thank her at the beginning of the call, from Tour Operator Land, who sponsors all of our webinars. She put her information in the chat box. And if you have questions about Connect Travel events, they're all happening November 8th through the 10th in Orlando. Domestic tour, Receptive Tour Operator South, International eTourism Summit, which is digital media, and our Connect Thrive Summit, which is focused on LGBTQ travel. So get in touch with us, and we're happy to talk to you about it. And thank you for tuning in again. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.